Away. There we go. So I'm hoping you can all see my slides. Andy, can you confirm?
Yes.
All perfect?
Hello. Yes, they
Lovely.
are perfect.
Thank you very much. Okay, so first of all, I know you all know who I am, but just in case you've forgotten, my name's Laura. I'm on Twitter at ThinkTeachTech. I am a London 17 graduate and a Denmark 18 and London 19 fan and coach and participant. And I'm really looking forward to having a quick chat today about some of the key things I think about the innovator journey that sometimes get overlooked. So let's crack on with our little chat. I'm aiming to talk for sort of 20, 25 minutes, and then have some time for conversation afterwards. I've got some real world artifacts to show you as well over here. So when we're done with the slides, I'll show you a few extra things too. So the message for today is all about the power of progress, the power of process, and how a couple of things that we might encounter in our innovator journey can really help us to focus on that progress and that process. So we talk about long distance cycling of all things, and also a little bit about classroom research and how those things can really help us just to get the most out of being an innovator and being on that innovator's journey. So I am going to get started. So what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about me. I have always been a highly goal-orientated person. I've always been very interested in achievement and in what I can do and new and ambitious targets I can set for myself. And I've realised that I was living a lot of my life doing this, just fast forwarding to the end goal and trying to see how quickly I could get there and all the rest of it. And what I realized was that I was continually missing out. I was missing out on opportunities to grow that come from the process because I was so focused on getting to the end all of the time. So if you're a bit like me, which I think if you're an innovator or interested in becoming an innovator, you almost certainly are, because we're all people who want to take on challenges. I'm going to challenge you through this presentation to just try and think a little bit differently about some of this stuff. So how I'm going to do that is by talking about a journey that I took last April. I decided to travel by bicycle from Lisbon in Portugal to Santiago in Spain. You can see that purple line there on the map. And actually, Andrew will forgive my not wonderful map skills, I hope. It's a really long way. And just zooming in a bit here, you don't have to be a particular expert in geography to recognise that that is a long journey. And so when you're setting out on the Innovator Academy, it might well be that you're thinking, this is an incredibly long and difficult journey that I've got to make, and I'm not sure I can do it. It's quite normal, isn't it, to have those doubts before you start about whether or not you're ready, whether or not you're equipped. So I'd never done anything like this before. I'd done long distance hiking before, but I'd never done long distance cycling. I did some training preparation in the UK, but I didn't really know what I was doing when I set off, and I learned a lot as I went along. So as I was starting out, as I was flying to Lisbon on that first day with my bicycle in a cardboard crate in the bottom of the aircraft, I was full of doubt, I was full of anxiety, I was full of fear. And I kept having to force myself to focus on the moment. And this is where maps is really super helpful, because we can say, okay, well, maybe not thinking about the whole 12, 13-day process. Maybe I'm just going to think about the first day where I'm going to go from Lisbon to Santarém. Or maybe actually even that is too intimidating. That's still like 60 Ks or something crazy. Maybe actually I'm just going to focus on the morning where I'm going to get to Lisbon and find my way down to the seafront and get cycling. Or maybe even that's still too intimidating. Maybe I have to keep just really focus on that first half an hour on finding my way to the bike shop in Lisbon, where they're going to rebuild my bike in the box for me and make sure it's safe. I've got to find my way through the town, heading south. I get a little bit lost. This is my actual track from the actual journey to the seafront. So as I'm landing, I'm doing all this good stuff in my head where I'm taking myself away from that big scary journey and thinking about the moment. But my mind, like all of us, kept jumping to the end. It kept skipping back to that kind of big scary picture and to the inability to do it. So as I set off, I was still pretty much in two minds about whether or not I was going to cope and what it was going to be like, and whether I was going to be, fit enough, strong enough, good enough cyclist, etc. And I couldn't seem to bring myself into the moment. And this is where we need these friends on the journey that I've christened to help us. So I'm going to talk about 3 particular moments on my journey and about things that I learned at those particular moments, which I hope are transferable to the Innovator journey and to any large project that you've got going on that feels a bit intimidating. So first moment I'm going to select is this one here. As you can probably see, there's a little pointy bit there on the top. Now, if you look back towards the sort of 10K area, there's another little pointy bit just there. And what you'll see is on this particular day, it was quite early in the trip. I was still getting comfortable and confident with riding my touring bike with its panniers on the back. And I kept getting to these points where I had to go very steeply upwards. And the steeply upward was okay because it was all right. But then I was confronted almost straight away with these really scary downhills. So this moment here, this is a learning moment for me. This was the moment where I met the first of my friends in disguise for the journey. I'm standing at the top of a very steep road. Fortunately, this was a tarmac section. And I've stopped because I'm too scared to keep going. It's about 6:30 in the morning. There's no one around. And I'm looking at this road in front of me thinking, I don't think I can do that. I don't know what to do. And I look behind me and it's actually exactly the same gradient to go back as it is to go forwards. So I've got a moment. I've come to a moment in my journey where I'm not thinking about Santiago. I'm not thinking about 900 kilometers in the future and the big picture and everything else. I have to be immediately present and focused in solving this challenge because, bluntly, it's scary. Excuse my little and self-entertainment of the Twilight Zone. So why is fear a good thing? I'm going to argue that fear on the journey is a fantastic thing because it's a signifier that you've reached a boundary. You've reached a boundary, maybe a boundary of your confidence, maybe a boundary of your skill, maybe a boundary of your planning and your preparation, and suddenly you're at a moment of choice. You have to decide what you're going to do. And in order to cope, you have a biological response to fear, which is to give you extra beats of your heart, extra breaths, more oxygen, more capacity, more circulation. And you actually have I find, a really intense, zoomed in, adrenalized focus. And when I felt that fear, I had to decide what to do. Now, it isn't necessarily the case at a moment of fear that the right thing to do is to keep going. The right thing to do might be to stop and turn back and go a different way and find another solution. But it's certainly a moment of choice and an opportunity to grow. And the growth could come from deciding to master your fear and give it a go. Or the growth could come from saying, actually, this is too much. My boundary, I need to come back a bit. But if you're at a moment of fear in your innovation project, in any big journey, I think that's something to notice and celebrate. Notice the awareness that you'll get. Notice your heightened senses. Notice the opportunity to have the energy to respond to that fear and potentially grow from making a good choice. So that's the first of our friends on the journey. I want you to try and think about moments of fear, moments of opportunity, and reflect on how in your innovation journey, where have you hit that boundary where you've had to make a real decision, and how has being zoomed in and present in that moment actually turned out to be a good thing. Okay, next moment. This was the worst day of the whole trip for me. I want to talk about that particular moment there, but first I want you to notice this blue line represents my track from the trip. I'd got lost here, I'd got lost here and here and here and here. Now I'm reasonably good at navigation, but I was really not having a good day. And then I got lost here and had to come all the way back down this way. And every single one of these is a hill, by the way. And then I struggled here a bit, got lost here, went back into the town, was like, okay, I need a break. Just take a minute, figure it out, have a drink. It's getting hot. Let's try again. And I got to here. And this moment is absolutely branded into my consciousness because I was so frustrated. I'm by myself in the middle of nowhere. The roads have disappeared. I cannot find the track. There's a footpath snaking up this sandy, boulder-filled, scree-clad slope, which is pretty steep in front of me. If I go back, I've already explored all the other roads out of the town that I can find that go in the right direction. I know I've got to go north. So what am I going to do? Ultimately, I have to pause and take a breath because I've met my next friend on the journey, haven't I? Frustration. Now, frustration is not something we would normally consider to be a good thing, but frustration is marked on every long journey, every big project you go through in life, whether it's a long bike ride, whether it's a long walk, whether it's a big project, whether it's anything you're doing like that, you're going to hit moments of frustration. And I want to encourage you to try and see those as things to celebrate. Very, very difficult in the moment, probably a bit easier after the moment. If you told me to reflect in that moment, I would probably have used some naughty words because I was pretty hot and bothered. Ultimately, what happened? Well, the Portuguese definition of a cycle path, somewhat different to my expectations. It definitely wasn't a cycle path where I was. What I had to do in the end was put the bike on my shoulder and scrabble up that bank, literally on my hands, and drag a 10k touring bike with fully loaded panniers up a vertical slope. Because frustration, where fear zooms us into the moment, frustration actually requires us to zoom out. Frustration requires us to let go of our initial objective and get creative. How am I going to reach my solution? How am I going to get where I want to go? And one of the really interesting things I think about frustration is it can lead to real invention, real innovation, real creativity. As you reach the end of your resource and you're like, what am I going to do? I'm not quitting. So just like fear says you're at a boundary, frustration says you're at a boundary too. But the difference with frustration is it shows you have not yet given up. But if you're feeling frustrated, it means you're still moving. You haven't given up. You are still going, and that is something to be celebrated. Absolutely. So I think that for me, there's a connection, a very strong connection between frustration and innovation. If something frustrates me, I'm going to try and find a solution. If something frustrates me, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to sort it out and solve it. And it might be painful and difficult, and it might involve toughing something out. And it might involve zooming out and remembering how far I've already come to get to this point. But I want to celebrate frustration as a friend in disguise, a moment of opportunity, a moment to zoom out and take stock and think, okay, I have already come all this way. There is no way I'm giving up now. So frustration, celebrate it. On to our third friend, this moment here. Now, this moment here, this was a toughie. I know it's a metaphor to say the wheels have fallen off my project, but in this moment here, the wheels had fallen off my project. This was day 11, and day 12 I had to be in Santiago. The end of the journey, the end of the Camino for me was Santiago. And I had my flight was out of Santiago the following early morning. So I had to get into Santiago, complete my pilgrimage, get to the hostel, box my bike up at the bike shop, to drop that off before 5 p.m. so that I could make my flight the following morning. If I didn't get to Santiago by 5, I couldn't box up the bike, I couldn't get the bike on the plane. The whole project was in real jeopardy. It was a real moment of problem. But again, up and down all these big hills. My beautiful touring bike, it's an absolute rock solid legend. It's amazing. But it was starting to make some pretty nasty noises by this point. And I'd stopped a few days previously at a little bike shop, and he'd had a look and he said, "It's okay, you've bent some of your back wheels a bit out of true. We'll straighten that up," all in Portuguese. And that seemed to do it for a day or two. But at this point, it was about, I don't know, 11 o'clock in the morning, about 40 k's out of Santiago. And the bike started making such a horrible noise that I thought, really, it's not safe to ride. I've got to do something. So I pulled over and sort of sat by the side of the road and thought, what am I going to do?
You make a mistake, you shouldn't start to cry.
Although, to be fair, I pretty much did. So here I am by the side of a road in the tiny middle of nowhere village in Portugal. Actually, no, in Spain. I just got crossed over the border into Spain. And I'm stuck. There's nothing there. And this guy comes out of a closed up shop front. And I'm like, oh no, really? I've got to deal with some strange chap now? What's going to happen? And he looks at the bike and he looks at me. And I don't speak Spanish. Well, I speak a bit of Spanish, but I don't speak Portuguese. And he was speaking Portuguese, and I was trying to explain myself in Spanish or French. And he beckoned me. And I'm thinking, oh no, is this wise? Anyway, and I stick my head into this deserted, boarded up shop front. And it's a cycle mechanics hobby shop. This guy runs has his hobby of repairing bicycles. It's not a shop. It's not his job. It's not what he does for a living. He's not there working. He happens to be there for the morning. And he comes out, looks at my bike, explains to me in sort of unexpected cross-language way that I need to stay there, and he's going to go and get a tool that he needs from his house to fix my bike. And can I stay there for 20 minutes and he'll be back? I just can't believe the kindness. It is so extraordinary. It's so unexpected. It's out of the blue. At this moment of complete failure where the whole journey is cast into doubt, here is this man, like an angel, in an unexpected space, with an unexpected offer, with such kindness. And I sit there because I'm knackered and I've got nothing else to do, nowhere else to go, thinking, oh, is he going to come back? Did I understand him correctly? And 20 minutes later, he appears. He pulls out 2 bananas from his pocket, gives those to me and says, basically, eat those while I fix it, and proceeds to fix my bike. He just takes it all to bits, puts it all back together, picks it up, spins the wheel around, problem solved. And he won't let me thank him. He won't let me give him any money. He goes back into his shop and carries on with his day. And it just was an absolutely extraordinary moment. I call him in my head, it's the story of the magic bike shop, because it's a bike shop in the middle of nowhere. Just at the moment, I happen to have completely given up and lost all hope. How does this relate to, we don't need them again. How does this relate to your innovation project? Well, for me, that moment of failure, I had to stop. True failure means you have to stop and you have to take stock and you have to reconsider. So where fear has made me zoom right in and be really present, have loads of energy to solve the problem, or where frustration has made me zoom out and go, okay, how else can I get around this? Failure is a total stop, right? Everything has stopped. What's really fascinating is that in that moment of stopping, I put myself in a position where somebody was able to come alongside me and help me. And it was completely unexpected, but my experience in the Innovator program has been exactly like that. Everyone is willing to help. And if you can stop and pause long enough to notice the help that's around you, there is so much help and support within this wonderful community of people that I say celebrate failure as part of this longer journey, as part of this longer process, because it can be at the most unexpected moments that in that moment of failure, the whole thing can turn. And he fixed my bike for me I stopped for maybe an hour, got to Santiago in good time, finished my Camino, took my bike to the bike shop in Santiago, had it dismantled. I was in the bar eating a fantastic burger at 6:30 p.m, feeling on top of the world because I took the time to stop and acknowledge that I was stuck and I needed help. I just want to quickly relate a couple of things here to the classroom, because bike journeys are fabulous, but not everybody goes on bike journeys. Hopefully you can relate. But I'm also a researcher studying how children learn in the classroom. And one of the things I've done is actually done some screen capture of students' screens while they're learning, and then review them. Obviously, we slow them down. I've speeded them up for you here. So with the teacher, we look at the whole class's screens and we talk about what was the teacher's intention of the task that was set here, and what is she seeing about the way the students learn, which gives her insight. And then we might, or him insight. And then with the student, we might sit down with one individual student and just show them their own screen and their own process of learning. And it's really fascinating to me. I'm an old lady, I've been teaching for a long time. And back in the day, we would just get the finished result of a student's learning. We'd just get the essay. And the ability to see the whole process, which we can get with Google Tools and with a bit of creativity, can teach us so much about children's learning. So just like as an innovator on a journey, every child's piece of work has a process they've gone through. If you see the process and then you can talk about that process with them, it's really fascinating. It can be so insightful and inspiring, and you learn a lot about your students and about how to support them better. So everything I've said about long journeys has to me, a really clear correlation to teaching and learning. What I say to my kids, why do I want you to focus on progress? Because as far as I'm concerned, when we focus on progress, we actually make our way towards something much more interesting, which is mastery. So we could be progress focused or mastery focused. And I think if we actually focus on the progress and the process and we embrace the fear, the moments of frustration, the moments of failure, we get to something much, much more interesting. Just coming back to the bike journey one more time. The question I would ask you is, which of these things means more? This is the certificate that you get at the end of your pilgrimage. And it's based on a medieval certificate which signifies forgiveness of sins. It's very interesting. This is your pilgrim passport. And as you go along your journey, everywhere you go, you get these little stamps from the bars and the hostels and the cafes. And it builds up this record of your journey. And I clearly think that one of these is more meaningful and significant than the other in this context. Okay, I'm going to come back to the call for 1 second. Stop presenting my screen. I just want to show you guys a couple of things. So what I've got to show you is a couple of quick things. Can you all see me? Yeah? Awesome. Okay, so Innovator-wise, I've got my London 17 Academy Participant Badge, my Denmark 18 Coach Badge, and my London 19 Coach Badge. So I put those three things together, right? And I make them a journey. This is my Innovator journey. But the badge and the certificate for me is not the focus. It's not about getting your Innovator badge. It's about that process, that progress you go on, the learning you have, and the people you meet. To me, these mean a lot because they're a reminder of all of you, of this program that I'm so proud to be part of, that I think is changing education around the world. So I have these on my desk where I see them, not to show off and be like, oh, look at me, I've got my Innovator badges, but because it's a visual prompt for that journey that we all go on, that we all take ourselves through. Two last things to show you. Talking about failure. Right, I've got two. At the end of your Camino, so that long bike journey I took is a Camino, it's the Camino to Santiago, and all the way along your journey, this is my pilgrim passport. Some people might have done this journey too. This was the first one that I did. This is 900 kilometers hiking from France over the Pyrenees into Spain. And I've got here, I started this journey in 2012. So all of these little stamps are from 2012, and they show my journey. And I got to a point on the journey in 2012, I had to go home. I was devastated. I was like, I failed, right? I couldn't complete the journey. Things happened. Now, because of the kind of person I am, I can't leave it there. So in 2016, I took the same ticket back with me. And I flew back, and I got to the point where I'd given up last time, and I started again. And I completed my process in 2016. So the failure in 2012, the circumstances in 2012, is actually what drove me to complete the journey in 2016. Failure is to be celebrated. And because I did it in 2016, I went back and did it in 2019. And the certificate means a lot less to me than the passport, right? There's the passport with all the stamps. That's the bit I care about. So as an innovator, the bit I would encourage you to care about is not the badge. It's not the goal. It's not even really the project. Sorry, Innovator Academy, if that's not the right thing to say. But it's the people. It's all of you. It's the journey you'll go on together. It's the moments of growth that come from fear. It's the moments of innovation that come from frustration and perseverance. And it's the moments of opportunity to help and be helped that come when you think that you've failed. I'm going to call it a day there. Time for some Q&A if you have any questions. And we'll come back together for a little chat. Thanks for listening, everybody. Let me know your questions.
Laura, thank you very much for presenting now. I'm going to stop the record. I mean, I know we're going to do questions, but I will stop the record now anyway. So I'll pause that off.